Hey everybody, it's Dave from Resin Force Products, and we're going to talk about various top coats you can use for the various epoxy floor systems you're doing out in the field. Getting started, we have our Polyaspartics. We have a fast cure EasyPoly low odor, and we also have a slow cure EasyPoly low odor. These are most commonly used for flake floor systems and quartz systems. Generally, if you're doing a flake floor and you're going to grout coat or top coat with Polyaspartic, the slow cure is what most people go to as the run-of-the-mill Polyaspartic that our customers are using, because it's so simple to use. You're not going to get the roller marks because it is slower cure, and the people, the clients and the contractors love the fact that it's very low odor, virtually odorless. You don't get that nasty, stinky smell as you're putting it down or even after you leave the job site. So the EasyPoly is one of our best sellers, but if you need to get back on the floor quickly to get it back in use, whether it's residential or commercial, the fast cure would be a great option to use. You have to move a little bit quicker as you're applying it to make sure you don't get the roller marks, but it's still very simple to use. That's why we call it EasyPoly. And if you need a little bit of extra traction control, you can add a 40 mesh grit. This is actually a polypropylene additive. You can use that and sprinkle that into your top coat and then roll it to lock it in. Another thing you could also use is like the clear natural quartz, which is about the same size. And that gives it a little bit of texture, a little bit of grit. And as long as you're going around maybe 125 to 170 square feet per gallon, adding that 40 mesh grit will be a good gauge to give you some extra traction control. If you're going any thinner with your Polyaspartic top coat, this probably would not be the product to use just because it's going to stick up too high. It's going to be too gritty. But at the same time, if you're using something like 100 mesh, if you go too thick with your Polyaspartic and you add 100 mesh, that's going to bottom out and sink, and it's not really going to do much. But if you're going closer to maybe 300 square feet per gallon and you want more of like a satin finish, then you could probably add 100 mesh, and then that'll give you a little bit of texture. But generally speaking, if you're going over flake or quartz, you're going to go anywhere between maybe 90 and 175 square feet per gallon as far as the full range. Most commonly about 140 to 150 square feet per gallon over a flake floor is kind of the sweet spot. If you're going over a smooth surface, like maybe a metallic epoxy or any other smooth, just neat epoxy system, you're probably going to be in the realm of 175 to 200 square feet per gallon, maybe 250. If you're going over quartz as a grout coat, generally it's going to be about 90 to 100 square feet per gallon. You can pigment this, so if you're doing a solid quartz system or a solid pigmented quartz system, you can add a pigment to this and do gray or tan or whatever color you want. Or you can do decorative quartz and just make it your clear top coat or your clear body coat for a double broadcast. So lots of different options, lots of different ways to use these, but you have the option to choose from if you want fast cure or slow cure. They're both very user-friendly and they're both low odor. Great products to use for those. Switching gears over to the urethane products, we have a gloss single component moisture cure urethane. This is most commonly used by contractors who are doing metallic epoxy floor systems as the top coat if you want a high gloss. Or if you want to knock it down a little bit and do a satin top coat, then you just add this 100 grit or the 100 mesh additive. It's a polypropylene bead basically, but it's in powder form. That added to this product will essentially give you a satin top coat. I personally recommend selling satin or matte on every job. I'm not a big fan of the high gloss systems, mainly because if you're going high gloss as your top coat, every little imperfection or nick in the epoxy will stick out like a sore thumb. If there's a little piece of fuzz or anything at all in that top coat, it's going to stick out really, really sore. So doing a satin top coat or a matte top coat kind of hides or blemishes those imperfections. It also gives a little bit more traction control walking on it so that it's not as slippery when wet or not as slippery just in sock track or if you're just wearing socks. Some basements and things, you want a high gloss like a man cave or something like that, or a showroom where you're just walking out with socks. It can be very dangerous on a super high gloss surface if you're just wearing socks because you can slip and fall pretty easily. Knocking it down with 100 mesh or maybe a 200 mesh will give a little bit more traction control so it's not as slippery, and it'll also hide some of those imperfections from the eye. Another option would be the water-based dual component gloss or the water-based dual component matte urethane. We don't sell the matte quite as often for metallic floor systems because people typically do want the gloss or the satin look, but you could do the matte. Just know that it's going to be matted down quite a bit. Do a sample board for your customers so they know what they're getting rather than just giving this to them right out of the gate. If you're doing a grind and seal and you're just grinding and prepping the concrete and you want to just do 2 coats of sealer, a great option that's going to last a long time and still be very abrasion resistant is to prime the concrete with the water-based gloss urethane and then follow with either a second coat of water-based gloss or use the second coat as the water-based matte urethane. I would not put the matte directly to the concrete, and I would not put the single component moisture cure directly to the concrete. Prime it first with a water-based gloss, and then you can follow it with this, or you can follow it with this. This product here is not designed to go direct to concrete, whereas this one is designed to go direct to concrete. So you've got a wide variety of options. If you're doing flake or quartz, generally the Polyaspartic is going to be the best way to go. If you're doing metallic epoxy, usually the single component moisture cure urethane is the best way to go, or maybe the water-based gloss. If you go a little bit too thin on these products, just know it's going to give you a little bit of an orange peel effect with the water-based products, whereas the single component moisture cure does kind of glass out a little bit better. If you are using the water-based urethane and you go too thin and it does orange peel on you, then sand screen it and then put it down just a little bit thicker, and then you won't get as much of an orange peel effect. But if you really want that glass out look, this is what's going to give you that glass out look. Because even when this is put down on a thicker side, it's still going to have a little bit of a ripple to it. But if it's really bad, just sand screen it and do it again just a little bit heavier. You can add the 100 mesh additive to any of these. It's probably not going to do a whole lot if you add it to the matte, but adding it to either one of these gloss products, it will knock it down to more of a satin finish. You'll see a little bit of a ripple in the top coat, which gives you a little bit more traction, but then also distracts the eye from any imperfections in the floor. So hopefully that answers any questions as far as when you might use different products, different top coats for different applications versus, flake versus quartz versus metallic or grind and seal. If you have any further questions beyond what we've covered in this video, feel free to reach out anytime, and we're happy to help. Have a good day.